For tutorial 10A, we're going to work strictly with the pen tool. So there's a few different parts to the pen tool and it can be a little tricky. So there's a few things we need to go over. Number one, there's like two types here. The one with the little curvy line is called the curvature tool, and we actually won't use that for this project. We're only going to use the pen tool, which is at the top. If you click and hold it, you'll see there's an anchor point tool. For short, I call it the caret, like K-A-R-A-T, like we would in math. And we also need some additional tools that are down here in the extra three dots here. So if you go and you drag this like pen with a plus and shove it next to or on top of your other pen, it's going to put them all in the same spot for you. So you can see like here all my tools put together. So I highly recommend doing that before we start. I'm going to draw in this project with like a bright green so you could see it, a bright green stroke and no fill. So for the first one, we need to make sure we're set to just our regular pen tool. And it's really helpful if you zoom in quite a bit for this project. It's going to make it a lot easier. So for the first one, it's pretty fast. We're just making a path. So the key is to click as close as you can to the center of each of these dots. And then when you get to the end and you need to end it, you're going to hit the escape key. And that's it for that one. For these here, we're going to trace this like solid shape, and then we're going to move them into the dotted ones. The cool part about this one is if you hold your shift key, you can get like some 90-degree and 45-degree angles at certain points. So I'm holding my shift key now, and I got like this perfectly straight one. This one isn't quite 45 degrees, so that one won't work there. This one is though. So I'm holding my shift key and it helps lock it into that point. Now, and I'm holding my shift key again to get that perfectly straight. And you'll notice when I want to close a shape, this little circle dude pops up next to the pen tip. So we need that to close off the shape. Don't worry if you're a hair off, like we just want to get it close. If you are worried about it, you can use like the white arrow and you can click on a point and just drag it to adjust it. But sometimes when you move one point, you have to start moving others around. So we just want to get close to it. Okay. So what we need to do here is this. We filled in like the solid gray line, and I'm going to click on my point and I'm going to adjust it here so that it's covering the dotted lines. Now here, we're going to need to get rid of this anchor point to make this fit on the dotted line. So I'll click and hold my pen. I'm going to use my delete anchor point tool. So it's a pen tip with a minus, and I'll click here and it totally deletes that line. Now, kind of opposite, I need another point here to put and drag there. So I'll go back, use my add anchor point tool. It's got a little plus sign. I'm going to click on the path, switch to my white arrow. I'm just going to click and drag it so it fits on top of there. So my final product for this shape should look like that. All right, then we've got this blob shape going on here. So there's a bunch of different ways to approach this, but we'll go back to our just regular pen. And I find the easiest is to just start and click. And now to get this bend, I'm gonna click and pull, not letting go, and just till it's like close. Like I said, it's not gonna be perfect. Pretty close though, can't complain. Not looking for perfection, just looking for it to be close, especially since this is our first time using it. If you get little dips like that, don't worry, I will show you how to adjust it at the end. So first priority is following the dots, click and pull, getting close, and closing the shape. Then we can go back and make any alterations we need. Click and pull, click, pull. Oh, that one's pretty good. Click and pull. So you notice there's not a ton of anchor points. So that's teaching us one thing. We don't want to use too many anchor points when we're drawing something. And as you saw, it closed it up with that little circle there. So we're lucky, it was pretty good. There's a bunch of ways we can change it. If you click and hold and use your anchor point tool, or like I called it, the caret, you can zoom in on an area and actually click on the line and sort of push that area in. You may notice you may get some like funky wiggles like that. So you can either like push it in, or you can grab, this is called a handle, and you can push and adjust that way. The key is that it's mostly smooth and that we don't have any like jagged edges, which sometimes that happens. It is what it is. Maybe that one I won't fix. Maybe I'll move this handle instead. Let's try that. Yeah, maybe that was the answer. We'll try that. And when you move one, sometimes you have to move some of the ones next to it. So my goal is just to try and make it as smooth and like blob-like as possible without little edges. Like I said, it's okay if it's not perfectly aligned to the drawing. It just has to be in the ballpark. It's our first time, so I'm not expecting absolute perfection, and that's why we're practicing. So let's zoom out a little bit. Okay, not bad. When you're drawing these, I ask that you keep them all the fill empty, and you just have like a stroke on there in a non-gray black color so I can see what you're doing. Let's work on the R. Let's go back to our regular pen, and we're going to use a little bit different of a technique for this one. Instead of like clicking and pulling, I'm just going to click. I'm going to hold down my shift key so I automatically get these nice right angles for these sharp corners. Okay. And I'm going to finish all these right angles. Now, when I get to the curvy stuff, I'm actually not going to try and curve it right now. I'm just going to connect the dots. I know it's going to look funny, and we're going to fix it at the end. But if you have I'm going to undo that. If you have any right angles, you can keep using your shift key. Okay, and I'm going to close it, and you can see that little dot pop up so you know it's closed now. Now, before I even get into the middle of the R, let's do some fixing. I'm going to use that anchor point tool again, and there's a shortcut if you want to use Shift C to switch to it. And I'm just going to pull these and adjust them slightly so that way you can see the curves. So it gives you an option. Sometimes it's easier to draw something and make the curves at first. Sometimes it's easier to just wait till the end so you work on the curves. I'm just going to keep that there. I think that's pretty good. I'm content with that. That's pretty close. Okay, let's do the inside, and that's its own closed shape. If you don't like where you placed the anchor point the first time, you can use Control Z to undo. Totally fine. And we'll close the shape again. I'm going to use Shift C to switch to my caret and adjust again. Okay, pretty cool. Pretty close. All right. And now we're going to working on this eye. This one you'll notice won't trace as evenly because we're going to apply a profile to the stroke. So to start, we'll use our regular pen, and we're going to click at the end of this kind of lash line here. Lid line, let's call it that. Okay, now when I need to end this line, I'll hit Escape on my keyboard. I'll switch to my anchor point tool, and I'm just going to grab it and pull it up like that. Then the next thing I'm going to do is work on the eye shape. I'll do the same thing here. Escape to break off, anchor point tool, drag it up. And you can even use that anchor point tool now to make some adjustments that way. It really turns into preference if you want to use those little handles, as we call them, or if you prefer to use the actual line itself. Your call. And I'm letting that line connect to my upper lid. Escape. Anchor point tool to pull it. Didn't grab it. Pull it down. Okay, that's pretty good. Let's do some more lines. So let's do these eyelashes. So you can connect here, and click and pull it like that, I find is usually easiest. I'm actually going to redo that. I'm going to undo it. So click, click, and then pull a little bit more like that. Again, doesn't need to be perfectly matched, but if you want all three to be uniform, use your black arrow to click on it, alt click, and drag it over. So that way you have the same angle for all of them. Alt click, drag over. Okay, that looks pretty good too. Let's work on the lid, this circle here as well. So if you want to start from the middle of the circle, you can hold down your shift and your alt key at the same time. And that's pretty close. Awesome. And we can do the same thing. I'll click off of it for a minute. Like that. I used my V key to switch to my black arrow. Let's go back to my circle. Get in the middle, alt shift, and pull to make a smaller circle. And then for this little like piece of glare in the eye, let's just outline it with our pen tool. And you'll notice I'll save the curves for the end, close up the shape, switch to my anchor point tool, and I'll adjust the lines slightly. Cool. All right, so there's a few things we need to do. Number one, it's asking us to apply a profile to the stroke. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna select the eye shape here and like the lid, and these are our width profiles. It's this drop down that says uniform. So I'm gonna go with that one, and you can see how the lines start out really thin and get thick. You're welcome to make them a little thicker so you can see some of your process. For these lashes here, I'm gonna click with my black arrow and I'm holding down my shift key to select all three. Then I'm gonna try a different one, like something like this is a nice. It starts out thick and gets thinner, kind of like eyelashes. And then you can like click off of them and adjust them as you need to. You can even change like the angles a little bit so that way they aren't like poking through. So I'll kind of go to the corner here and I can tilt them, I can pull them out. There's a lot of different ways you can approach it. You can even just make them thinner. That's usually the easiest way, honestly, because they're not going to fully cover the gray outline anyway, and I'm not expecting them to. Okay, let's go in and fill in the eyeball. I think this is the iris, the color, the part that's a color. So I'm going to just make it solid green, but I can't see all the other things. So I found my inner circle, my pupil. I'm going to right click on it, arrange, and bring it to the front. And let's change the color. Make it black. You can make your eyes any color you want as long as I can just see everything. That's fine. Okay. And then hover. So there's my glare. Let's bring that to front too. So click on the line, bring to front, and let's turn it to white. Okay, cool. Then you're pretty much done with your design here. You could change the colors of this stuff if you want, but you're pretty much good when you have all these elements completed. And that's the beginning of using our pen tool.